let's review domain and range together. Domain and range has three different ways or three different notations: inequality notation, set notation, and interval notation. Let's start with inequality notation number 1. Domain is x values, so we look at the x-axis from left to right. Range is y value, we look at y-axis from bottom to top. And for inequality notation, we can always write, if it's continuous, and we can always write down x less than for domain, and y less than for range. Let's look at domain. So x-axis, from the most left point, I draw a line to touch the x-axis, and I know the most left x value is -1. I do not put an equal sign under less than because this is open circle. I do not include this point. Now let's look at the most right point for the domain. I draw a line to touch the x-axis, and I got the biggest x value is 3. But this time, since this is a closed circle, I have to put an equal sign for 3. Now let's look at range. Range, we look at the y-axis from the bottom to top. So here is the most bottom point. When it touches the y-axis, it's at -5. So I'm gonna say -5, and the highest one is at 3. Since it's a closed circle, I have to put equal sign. And to determine if it's a function, we need to draw a vertical line, do the vertical line test. If only one point touches the graph, then it is a function. Move on, question 2. It's in set notation. For set notation, if we see the graph is continuous, before we even look at the domain and range, we can already write down the domain and range. So for domain, we do the fancy bracket, x such that, and then x less than. Then I close the bracket. And for range, bracket, y such that y less than, close the bracket. Okay, now let's look at the graph. Again, domain, we look at x-axis, and it's from the most left to the most right. So most left point, when we touch the x-axis, is at -4. It is a closed circle, so I have to put equal sign. Most right point is at +4. It's an open circle. I just leave it like that. I'm done with domain. Now let's look at the y, the range. Y-axis, from bottom to top. The bottom is -4. Since we have one closed circle, we always have to go with the closed circle, so I put equal. And the top for y value, or the range, is at -2. Since it doesn't have open circle, that means we include this point. So I also put less than and equal to. Again, to determine if it's a function, we do vertical line test. Only one point touches the vertical line on the graph, so it is a function. Question 3, interval notation is the soft bracket or hard bracket. So for soft bracket, it's so still domain. the x-axis from most left to the most right. Most left point is at -1. Most right point is at +3. All right, so since both most left and most right point are open circle are soft bracket. Now let's look at the range. Range, the smallest y value is at -4. The biggest y value is at 2. There are also both open circles, soft bracket. Is this graph a function? Let's see. Let's do the vertical line test. Okay, only one point touches the graph, so it is a function. The last one, we only see those dots. They are called discrete function. And it wants to be set notation. Again, set notation for discrete, we have those fancy bracket x such that, and we list all the x values for domain and close the bracket. For the range, fancy bracket y such that, close the bracket, and we list all the y values. So let's do the x values first. Your domain from the most left to most right. Most left point, when I touch the x-axis, the first x value is -1. And we go right to the next point. And I see it touched the x-axis at 0. Next one to the right at 1. Next one to the right at 2. Next one to the right at 3. This is the list of all x values for my domain. Now let's look at the y values from bottom to top. Bottom to top. The smallest y value, they're both at +1. I don't need to repeat. I just record one once. And then the next one is at 2. The next one, 2 points both at 3. And that's it. I close the bracket. This is my range. Now let's do the vertical line test to determine if it's a function. So I'm going to draw a vertical line to across the graph. And I see each vertical line only touches the graph once, so it is a function. That's it.